Welcome back to the ABCs of ERP and Beyond, the show where we cut through the noise and give businesses the practical truth about getting onto maybe your very first ERP, or if you're already on one and you're moving on to some new system. Well, we're here to demystify the modern world of ERP. And today we are focusing on a topic that can look simple on paper, but gets messy fast in practice. And some of the things we'll talk to today probably comes from experience. I can see Nirav thinking about that. So we're going to be talking about integrating Shopify with Microsoft Dynamics Business Central. Everyone loves the idea of plug and play e-commerce, but the reality is if your data isn't clean, if the connector isn't configured correctly, or if BC isn't configured correctly, you're going to be spending a lot of your time after go live wondering why orders are duplicated, taxes look wrong, or even straight up orders missing. So in this episode, we are going to break down what really works, what doesn't, and what are the lessons learnt. So without any further ado, welcome back, Nirav Shah. How you been?
Good, Peter. Not bad. In Chicago in January right now, so the weather is a little bit gloomy and cold, really cold here, but happy to be back and excited for the season. We have a ton of really great episodes and things that we're going to talk about. This is a fun one because we just recently went through a project with a customer of ours where we implemented the Shopify connector to Business Central and found out a lot of things about this connector that we'll love, we want to share to the audience if they're kind of looking at both of these pieces of software to kind of come together, and what they should start, thinking about now, and determine whether you should go down the route of the Business Central connector, or should you look at maybe another Shopify to Business Central connector. Now, there's a ton out there, so happy to, and there's probably more things too that we probably won't even talk about today, but these are at least some of the lessons that we've learned with implementing these two together, and just hoping that it's going to help others in the same position, going through the same process, to not kind of make some of the same missteps. And I would say missteps from a standpoint of there is always a backup, but a misstep of how to better prepare for this integration.
Yep. All right. Well, let's start off with the basic. I know I kind of mentioned the whole plug and play, but we know it's not as simple as that. But when we do plug in Shopify into Business Central, we need a connector, basic connector, right? So what options have we got? What should we consider when we're looking at how we connect these two systems?
Yeah. So Microsoft Dynamics Business Central, they offer a out-of-the-box connector. So whether you get the Essentials license, whether you get the Premium license, doesn't matter. It comes with every installation. You get this connector available to you for you to fire up, integrate your Shopify site, right? And start pulling orders. So that's a nice feature for any license to have, that connector. You're not buying an add-on. You don't have to, do anything more. You just have to, the setup is very simple. Basically, you get your myadmin.shopify site, whatever.com. You plug in the app on the Shopify side. You connect the link on the Business Central side, and you enable. That's all you do, and you basically are connected. And then you guys start making decisions on what are you doing with that connection? How do you want to move the data? Unilaterally, bilaterally, what's important? I would put it this way, Peter. While going through that first time that we did on our go live, I feel like that the connector is very basic. And I think Microsoft's kind of done that on purpose, right? I'm sure they could have easily rolled out a lot of functionality to this, but the idea is that to come out with like a MVP, minimal viable product, that they continue to add more functionality to over the various different upgrades that Microsoft does, the 2 upgrades that they do every year. I always see in every release some new Shopify functionality. But I would say right now, the way it stands, it's a basic connector. It allows you to pull your orders, allows you to pull products from Shopify, variants, pull shipping methods, right? Pull your companies from Shopify. And it's more of a one-way going from Shopify to Business Central than it is Business Central going back to Shopify. Now, there's some switches in there as well that you could tell Business Central that if you update a customer in Business Central to also go update it on the Shopify side, right? And obviously, that's assuming that those fields exist. on the Shopify side. But again, it's very basic, right? Think of the fields that are required to put in a new customer in Business Central, right? You need those financial fields. You need the general product posting group code. You need your general business posting group code. Maybe you want to do check date format. Maybe you want to do send statements, which is a flag. Maybe you want to, put in a default location, so on and so forth. So there's a lot of detailed data that you put into Business Central that probably doesn't exist, or there's not a place for that data in Shopify, right? Same thing with items. You could, in theory, go ahead and update Shopify products directly from Business Central. But what can you update, right, is the question. Maybe you could update a description, which is coming from the description field. Maybe you could update unit of measure, right? That type of stuff, but you can't update, right? In Shopify, there's no field for extended text, right? You can't update that from Business Central to Shopify. You cannot update maybe what's it gonna, maybe planning methods, right? Lot for lot or reorder or fixed or anything like that. You can't update that. So what it provides is kind of what I would call a one-way sync from Shopify to Business Central to take the data as is. It'll go ahead and create your numbering schema. So like your customers will have the numbering schema that you identified inside Business Central, because Shopify doesn't use the numbering scheme, right? You just name and basically his full name, right? Or company name.
Yep.
Same thing with products. It does, right? Products, you probably have SKUs, but even in Shopify, you don't need to have SKU numbers. It's really optional for you. But if you do, it just makes it easier that you could do a one-to-one matching from that SKU on Shopify inside Business Central. Otherwise, right, you're forced to use item numbers in Business Central that don't really exist in Shopify. So it just makes that reconciliation a little bit more difficult. But it provides what's necessary for a retailer. Now, would this work for a retailer that does like maybe $100 million a year on Shopify? They do $200 million a year on Shopify. Will it work? I don't think so, and we'll get into the details of why I don't think so. But would it work out of the box for a retailer maybe that does $5 million, that does $10 million, right, in sales? I think so. I think it's a good solution for that, because there's a lot of what they need bare bone is available right there for them to integrate their e-commerce into Business Central to fulfill those orders and kind of connect inventory and accounting and all that, on the back office standpoint. So I think it's a great solution for it. But, if you're looking for something a little bit more robust than just a basic connector, right, there's other options out there.
I was about to say, like when we say, there's a native kind of lightweight connector, I always kind of think, well, what do you mean by lightweight? Like lightweight as in it's super optimized, or lightweight as there's actually missing a bunch of features that I need?
That's it.
But that's the case that we start to run into limitations pretty quick with the basic
we do
BC Shopify connector. So as ever in the ERP world, there are ISV solutions. So what alternatives are there that are kind of worth considering? I know there's going to be a bunch, but what's your kind of top one or two that you got?
Yeah, so probably, the first one is Celigo. I think Celigo is a great choice. We've done a number of Celigo installations, integrations, not only to Acumatica and Business Central, essentially. And for this particular customer, for example, we did an Amazon to Business Central connection through Celigo, which they already have a flow template already created through Celigo, which was nice. But they decided to use a native Business Central Shopify connector, essentially. But Celigo's one, which is nice because it's very flexible, gives you a starting point, and then you can do mappings any way you want. You get a lot more freedom to do things the way you want to define and set up and pass back and forth between Business Central and Shopify. So Celigo's one is really nice because that whole mapping functionality and a benefit that you get there. Now there's other just, outside of Celigo, there's other ISVs that just focus on retail e-commerce. So if the idea is that you want all the orders to come in to like a central place, maybe before they come into Business Central, then look at something like a Suite Engine Channel Manager, right? That's taking multiple omni-channels. Like you sell on eBay, you sell on Etsy, you sell on Shopify, you sell on different marketplaces. Well, all those marketplaces are already kind of pre-built out into like a third-party ISV, and all the orders flow into a central place that then flow into Business Central. So, that gives you, that's obviously a lot more powerful because it's allowing you to see a full 360 view of your omni-channel and all the orders in one place, basically. And, so obviously Celigo could do that same thing too, but there are, more, I guess, thorough industry, best industry practices, solutions out there. If you're in that kind of range of retailer that first sells in these different marketplaces, and you maybe have, you're at the $100 million mark, and maybe you're at the $50 million mark, $80 million mark, and when you're at that level, I just don't think the out of the box Business Central connector, would help you as much because of all the different business logic that you've put together already on your e-commerce sites that you need to bring forward into your ERP and Business Central.
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to jump around some of the points we got here because I want to keep pulling at this thread. So let's maybe list out some of the limitations that you've seen from the native BC Shopify connector, because there's probably going to be there's going to be people out there going, well, hang on, why am I already dismissing it when I don't know why I couldn't use it? So what are some of the limitations that you see that might be a straight up no for someone that's looking at this?
Yeah, so we're in a global economy now, right? And you could do business anywhere in the world with any other country. So multi-currency is a clear distinction here. So if you do sell internationally and you take, payments in different countries, and it's important that, and you do especially B2B on the e-commerce side, and you do terms orders, and that order comes in at a specific rate, right? Spot rate, if you will, right? The order doesn't, out of the box limitation is that order doesn't, there's no multi-currency capability to bring in the order based on spot rates and stuff like that, right? That you could bring it in different currencies, but it doesn't convert it for you when it becomes a sales order in Business Central. That's an important piece for companies that have, or you do business in where there's high inflation, or, the currency changes, significantly throughout, days or months or whatever. And it's important for you to capture that. That's number one. Multi-currency isn't fully supported with the out-of-the-box connector. The second one is sales tax. This one was interesting to me because there isn't clear Microsoft documentation on sales tax. Microsoft Learn talks more about VAT and how VAT is calculated using the connector. But, doing business in the US and domestically here, especially, and I'm not talking about, Europe and the places that does use VAT, but like, here in North America where we do sales tax, there wasn't true guidance on how sales tax integrates. So we were literally like, we're reading code, we're asking other folks like, hey, how come sales tax isn't integrating? Because the way you look at the connector and you look at Shopify orders come in, you'd think naturally that sales tax would come in into the subtotal of every order. But it doesn't. You need to either do a small enhancement to the connector to bring sales tax in as a GL line to the sales order, or you have to use Avalara or one other third-party solution through Shopify that then send the sales tax appropriately to the correct places inside Business Central for us to report sales tax off of Business Central. So that was a little annoying, I thought. Because obviously anytime you have customer-facing documents and orders, you'd want to make sure that sales tax is easy to set up. That's one headache that you don't want accountants to go through. But I thought that was a missed mark by Business Central for not being able to integrate sales tax easily.
That's interesting though, because you might be in a position where you're like, okay, I don't do multi-currency because that's not an issue for me. But then it might be, I already use Avalara. So it could be a good thing. It's like, okay, maybe the basic connector's back on the table if you're already using them. All right. Anything else that's like it doesn't do or something that people should know about?
Yeah. Returns is a bad one. Can't on a return side get the return and automatically process the return in Business Central. Like it comes in as reference, but then you have to manually process it through. So that becomes a little annoying. and it it's a lot of manual management instead of like the return creating the return order automatically inside Business Central, and then someone already is notified inside Business Central that a return just kind of happened on the Shopify side. Now we got to expect the goods to come in, and then there's a refund part of it that happens on the Shopify side, right? So the refund should automatically come in and create a credit memo. And that's another one that you have to manually do because you have to apply that credit to the payment that originally came in from Shopify. So that is a lot more manual than what you'd expect, especially for your distributor that does business on Shopify. This is probably something that happens multiple times throughout the day when you're getting returns, right? Or return requests. So why make it difficult? So Business Central missed the mark on that a little bit, makes it a little bit more manual. But like if you look at a type of a Celigo solution, or if you look at a solution like Suite Engine, right? They have a full end-to-end lifecycle with returns. And they do it very accurately. They automatically create the records that are necessary. So it's kind of hands off at that point. The records just get created in the normal course of business. And then once the order is in the system, then they start processing like they normally would.
Yep. All right, next point here, which is going to be my favorite one because it's probably the most important one. And it's the one that I love getting involved in and get my hands dirty with. Most important one, and really the one we should have started with here, is
that's true.
Clean your data. Most important step is making sure you have clean data on the BC side, which you should be maintaining anyway, but now also on the Shopify side. Now it's time to do another data audit, right? And check the condition of your data, both the master data and the transaction data, because we've got a live system that we're already using. So it's not like, standard ERP migration where you're just coming across with kind of trial balances and master data. You're actually coming from a system that you're already using. So there's already transactions in there. You've already got live and active orders that could be at any stage of the order process. So you got a bunch of stuff you need to be really careful with. So let's break down some of the actions to do before go live. Where do you want to start?
So I think cleaning Shopify data becomes like, I think most of the times doesn't even like, get a line item on a project plan. I think everyone just assumes that, hey, we're just going to bring orders in, right? And what they focus in on is maybe their legacy system, the data that they're putting in, like, legacy, their customers from the legacy system, their vendors from the legacy system, their, parts from a legacy system, that type of stuff. But what they fail to understand is once you fire up that connector and a go live, it's bringing in all unfulfilled orders. Okay. And if you haven't cleaned your Shopify data, like let's say you have data in there from 2016 that you have unfulfilled orders, but they're actually technically fulfilled, but they're just sitting there, right? No one's going to go ahead and go back and clean that up, right? Maybe you merged an older Shopify site to a new Shopify site, or maybe you merged a WooCommerce site and converted it to a Shopify site that it just brought in all that historical data. No one took time to clean it. It's still marked as unfulfilled orders. And then you fire up that connection. Well, guess what's going to happen? You're going to get orders from 2016 in your business, right? And then all of a sudden it was like, oh my God, people are fulfilling orders from 2016. Customers not expecting it, right?
There's Amazon with their like same day delivery, and there's you with your 10-year delivery.
Exactly. Like imagine the confusion that causes, right? And now you have bad data in there and everyone's like, crap. All right. So clean up those archived orders. Like only have orders that you're going to be going live with. That's it, right? Like every other order, if that needs to be closed, close them, fulfill them, archive them in the system. Clean up your company and customer list. What if there's duplicate customers there, right? You're going to create duplicate customers inside Business Central. So you're already confused.
Accounts.
Yeah, a throwaway accounts.
Especially on e-commerce, you know what people are like signing up to everything. And now you've got potentially thousands of dummy customers coming in.
Thousands of dummy customers, exactly, right? Make a decision on that data. Let's say if you're a retailer that actually has to track warranty, right? Well, then these customers that buy from you should not come over under a template customer like Shopify, like a template Shopify customer, and everybody becomes a ship to address. If it's important for you to track warranty, then each individual customer that orders from you should be a customer inside Business Central. So make sure the connector's set up correctly that way, right? Last thing you want is there's a case that you need to do on your product, and now you really can't put a case in because everyone came under a template customer, a B2C customer, something like that, D2C customer, right? So very important points, how are you, what information do you need to track in the ERP? So that's going to help you define the setup in the Shopify side. But clean it. You don't want duplicate customers. And then this one, Peter, you could probably, really, you probably have some horror stories here and understand how this could be a big issue. Is Shopify is like the Wild Wild West, like kind of like QuickBooks. You could have products with SKUs, or you could have products without SKUs. You can have products with SKUs over 30 characters. You could do a lot of different combinations, but Business Central is pretty strict, right? It uses items. The item could either be inventory, non-stock, or service, right? And you only have 20 characters to work with. So you got to make decisions on both sides. You kind of have to think about, okay, do we want each Shopify product plus SKU be an individual item inside Business Central? Or do you want each Shopify product plus variant to be a item plus variant inside Business Central, right? And that's going to determine how do you keep within the 20 character limit inside Business Central for when you're importing your products over from Shopify. So you got to make that decision pretty early on. And there might be some things there where you can't. Maybe your SKU numbers are a reflection of your vendor part numbers, and you've done that for 20 years. Okay, well, we need to bring those products into Business Central. So we need to start thinking of how do we redo our SKU numbers inside Shopify, right? Before you turn the connector on. Because it's really easy in these projects to test maybe like 5 items. On a 6-month implementation, you test 5 items and feel like, oh, everything's great. We test these 5 items all the time and it's fine. And then next thing you know, you're going live and now you have, let's say, 1,500 items in your Shopify site. And now you're making decisions like really fast that could not harm, but create mass confusion. So you need to think this through way in advance before you even go live, so you understand what the results are. So what we did for, just an example for one of the customers, we actually did a few different, what we call mock syncs from Shopify to Business Central. And every point we made them kind of refresh their production Shopify site, and they would put what their desired part numbers would be for their products, cleaned customer lists, so on and so forth. And we would just connect their live site to like a test BC site and just keep testing. Like, hey, did the products come over correctly? Did they get created the way we wanted them to get created in Business Central? Did customers get created the way we want to get created in Business Central? Now, we would not transact those orders. Maybe we'll see the orders come in, but we wouldn't ship them and cause, fictitious shipping information to go back inside Shopify. And there's a flag for that too. You could stop. You can bring data in, but there's a flag where you could actually tell the system, stop the data from going back to Shopify and updating anything. So we always left that off. So we're able to bring live data in and we could see it way far in advance of going live. So that was really helpful. But there's a lot of decisions you got to make. You can't just be using 4 or 5 items and assume that the rest of the data is going to flow correctly from Shopify into Business Central.
Yeah, I think it's this whole idea of connecting a casual system to a strict system in terms of data governance, right? I think the fact that Shopify is like the Wild Wild West on master data and BC is the opposite, that mismatch can lead to integration disasters, really.
Yeah.
And you're gonna find out very quickly when that connector goes live.
It's gonna hurt. It's gonna hurt because you have to fulfill those orders. And I don't know what the stat is, but I think the stat is 6 out of 10 e-commerce retailers on Shopify do same-day shipping, same day or within 24-hour shipping. So imagine you get all this bad data. It's like opening up you open up the dam, right? And all of a sudden the water just starts rushing in. You can't close it anymore, right? And you're just like, oh crap, what just happened? So prepare yourself for that, because once you start bringing that data, it's very hard to revert back.
Yeah.
Very hard
Yeah.
to revert back. You need to just delete that whole company almost, readjust settings, and re-import those orders back in. So
Yeah. Yeah.
and that's one of the limitations. You can't go and change the data because Business Central looks for some of those direct links back and forth. So if you try to go and change data on Business Central and not have it updated in Shopify, that could cause some issues too. So before you open up that dam and say, hey, we're going to go live and we're going to start importing our orders, do that a couple of times before. See how it's going to look. So,
all right. So let's continue that and talk about some of these errors then, because I think from our notes, it looks like you might have some lessons learned on this around Shopify errors in BC.
yeah.
Basically, tell me how good are you at reading JSON?
But this doesn't surprise me. Microsoft errors are so vague in Business Central. Like, literally, I think you need a PhD in psychic reading. They're trying to tell you it's super hard. It's always been hard. In the nav days, it's been hard. Business Central is no different. The Shopify connector is no different. And unless you know how to read JSON and could follow like all the small bitty text and all the different parentheses and everything there, it's just really hard to understand, why data didn't come over, didn't get synced between Shopify and Business Central. To give an example, you get Shopify orders that come inside Business Central into a table called Shopify imports, order imports. And let's say the system did not create a automatic Business Central sales order and link it together. All you see on that Shopify order in Business Central, it says something along the lines of order was not be able to be mapped.
Great.
But why? Yeah, exactly. Like if I'm trying to troubleshoot this thing, like, okay, let me check the sold to. Then let me check the items. Let me check the unit of measure.
Nah.
Let me check the shipping address.
Fuck that
Let
order.
me check the bill.
Pretend we never saw it.
Exactly. Pretend we never saw it. Delete. All right, next order. Someone should catch it in Shopify. But like, it's so vague. Yeah, you could retrieve the Shopify transaction, which is the JSON, but who the hell is going to go through like literally 45 lines of JSON mapping? Here we go, found it. It's this little bit of location ID that was missing because someone changed the location ID code in Business Central that didn't get updated back in Shopify, so that screwed up the whole sync. Okay, interesting. So Microsoft, if you're listening to this, you need to do a better job on these errors, man, because errors are taking like hours and hours and hours to resolve, and it could have been, and then you find what it is, and it's like a 2-minute fix, like a 10-second fix, right? So yeah, it's very, it's hard for non-technical folks to understand what it is. The other part of it is difficult mapping Shopify IDs. So let's say an order for one reason or another, a shipment didn't get synced back into Shopify. Well, you can't manually tell Business Central, hey, force it. Here's the order ID, original order ID from Shopify. Go and force the sync. You basically have to go into Shopify and manually like mark it as fulfilled. You can't do it through Business Central. You can't. They just lock those fields down for you. So, which is a bit annoying, right? Your customer service, you're just in Business Central all day long. You really are not maybe in Shopify, but then you got to go back in just to make an adjustment. The good thing is that it comes up as an error, like on your role center. There's like a little Shopify's activities queue, action queues that they have like 7-8 different options there. But one of them is called ship, but you can't like correct them one by one. You have to go into Shopify and mark them as fulfilled. And even then, those orders don't get off your ship and error list. They stay in there forever inside BC. So yeah, hard to understand that piece of it. I'm hoping that they do something that's more understandable for a layperson at the end of the day that is in charge of this connector. But
yeah, and it's going to bog down your experts that, your IT support end up having to try and become wizards of demystifying some of these errors, right?
Exactly.
Especially if they're supporting the rest of the business. They're probably supporting day-to-day BC operations, God knows what else. So I'm trying to stand up for the IT people. All right. So aside from actual errors and error messages, what other kind of weird quirks or errors do you see that might not flag as, an actual error message, and weirdness you've seen when you've done these?
Yeah, just some weird stuff. I really can't put my finger on it. We're having our dev actually look into this a little bit more. But like we'll see duplicate sales orders created for the same Shopify order. And when you look at the JSON between both those orders, it just shows like at one point the order came in when there's $0. Like it almost got created too quickly from Shopify to Business Central. Like the trigger got sent too quickly before the customer completed the checkout and the order got created. And then they went ahead and completed the checkout and the order got created again. And we're just like, what the hell? You know? So we had to develop kind of a duplicate check where we run maybe once a day or something like that just to see if there's any duplicate orders. That was a little strange and odd. Like we're kind of figure out why would that happen. Syncs could be delayed because it's important when you're take an order from Shopify. One of the neat things about it is as soon as something ships and there's a tracking number, Shopify will send the customer an email. Right, saying, hey, your product ships, here's a tracking number, blah, 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 right? And Business Central kind of does that to an extent too. But if you're using the Shopify connector and you're sending shipment information back to Shopify and that gets delayed, the customer's saying, they're like, did they ship my damn order? What the hell's going on? Why is it late? I'm expecting like 2 days shipping here, right? So then like you see a delay in that information being passed to Shopify. And we've seen delays upwards of like 1 day. Seen upwards of 1 day where that order
can
just
get backed
stuck,
up.
Yeah, it just gets stuck. That order just gets stuck and you have no idea how. You can't take it out. And then all of a sudden you see it just like kind of pass through. Like we're like, what the hell? Like we did nothing and that order just went back Shopify, but like a day later. So
But that could cause chaos, right? Because that's going to have an issue in the physical world as well, and it's just going to compound, especially if you're high volume Shopify stores that have hundreds of orders a day. You kind of don't want to have to worry about, the handful that seem to get stuck because it detracts your attention from all the other orders that are still coming through the door.
Well, exactly. You're as a retailer, you're only as good as your communication to your customers, right? That's why not only is shipping important for customer service, returns are really important for customer service. And if you keep them in the dark, chances are they're not going to do business with you again, right?
Yeah.
The reliability has to be there. So the good thing is that we have not seen any issues with orders coming in to Business Central from a delay standpoint. Orders kind of come in and we haven't noticed any issues with the sync or anything like that, unless like Shopify was down. Like for example, Shopify was down on Cyber Monday. I don't know if you knew that or not. This past Cyber Monday that happened, literally Shopify was down and customers were still able to take orders, but the back end, like as an admin, you couldn't log into Shopify literally for almost a whole day. Like it crashed. Right. So that was annoying and that caused some delays of orders coming into Business Central. But things like that could happen. I mean, that's just in the environment we live in now, being on the cloud, everything kind of operates there. I mean, maybe we had the Amazon outage, remember, where Shopify was affected there as well on the Amazon outage. So, and Cloudflare was affected, which
Cloudflare went down yesterday as well. For a couple of hours.
Oh, it did?
Again, yeah.
Oh, wow. Again.
Like
oh, my
3
God.
3 a.m. Central. So you guys were fine, but 9 a.m. over here was chaos.
Yeah, there's you guys. Yeah, chaos. Exactly.
And Monday.com was down. Workday was down.
Wow.
Well, it's Cloudflare, right? It's half the internet.
Half the internet, exactly.
AWS was up, Azure was up, so I was okay. I was pretty much okay. As long as Azure doesn't go down, I'm fine. I don't have to worry about it.
Exactly. But yeah, these are the problems that you're going to face. And I think, to be fair, I think it doesn't matter which connector you use for these type of issues, right? It's just signals that Shopify sends. It's what's happening on the cloud that day. Something just gets stuck on the traffic system of the cloud or whatever. So it's just not a BC Shopify connector situation. It could be any connector at the end of the day. So I also want to kind of mention that, right? You always have to recognize that once you start depending more on these connectors and stuff like that, you're just kind of I wouldn't say held hostage, but you're just kind of at the mercy of what's happening on the cloud, right? The reliability of it at the end of the day.
So. I still think it's one of those areas, though, where you start to, one, it's easy to take for granted, and two, it's easy to start to forget of how it used to be before. And it's the same, we're seeing the same thing with ERP going to the cloud, right? Everyone gets used to it. Everyone gets used to the 99.9999% uptime.
Yeah.
When it goes down, everyone's like,
Yep.
well, you know, this is the bad side of a cloud ERP. It's like, well, how many times did your on-prem server need to be reset or rebooted and you kick everyone out and having to do maintenance every single week? Like, you get
Exactly.
very comfortable on modern technology until it
Mhm.
has a blip. It's easy to forget about how many blips we used to have to deal with back in the day, right?
That's true. That's true. It's true. Absolutely. Absolutely. And I mean, having these integrations just makes life so much easier, believe it or not, right? It just makes it so much easier. Yeah, you got to manage the exceptions and stuff, right? But it definitely is, if you're a small business, smaller retailer, I think the Shopify to BC connector is a great solution. It really is, to get you going, to integrate at least your Shopify site. Now, once you start expanding, get a bigger online presence, start selling on different marketplaces and platforms, you're gonna start growing that. But now at least you know what you want, right?
Yeah.
On the next connector that you implement into your ERP, Business Central or Acumatica, whatever it is. So I'm always the opinion of the crawl, walk, run model. And if you're that smaller retailer right now that is looking to kind of create more efficiency, single source of truth, reducing manual data entry from orders coming to Shopify and then manually putting in orders into another ERP or another order management system. Right, this is a great connector for Business Central, but you have to know some of the limitations and some of these lessons that we've obviously come across. Hopefully, that's going to help benefit others and be able to start making some wiser decisions right out of the gate on your implementation and make it a successful installation.
Yep. And I think that's pretty much it for today's deep dive into sometimes painless, often chaotic world of connecting Shopify to an ERP.
Yeah.
But I think if there's one takeaway, it's that it's not really because of the technology. It's probably because of some of the pre-prep. I guess it's a little bit like just your normal ERP implementations, right? It's all about cleaning that
Right.
data, understanding your data, auditing it, and really taking an assessment before you start plugging in and switching on stuff. And I really like that idea of using that ERP sandbox of your live Shopify site to a sandbox environment to really see what it is. It's a great idea to take a snapshot of your live system, update your sandbox, connect those two, and then essentially you've got a perfect kind of copy of the real world without actually affecting the real world.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's a really nice one.
Yeah.
Yes, good. Thank you very much. Thank you for listening to the ABCs of ERP and Beyond. If you found this episode helpful, well, make sure you share, like, subscribe, post about it on LinkedIn. And definitely, if you are someone that is using Shopify and you're looking at maybe integrating the two and want to save those people a few gray hairs, send them this episode.
Yes. Funny enough, that customer that we did a pretty major installation, they were part of the hair restoration business, actually.
We don't mind the stress because we can deal with their gray hairs.
Yeah, we have a solution for that.
Good.
Yep.
So yes, make sure you like and subscribe. We come out with a new episode every 2 weeks, and we are doing this for free. There's no subscription, so we kind of really need people to share the content, and if you find it useful, make sure you tell people that you think might also benefit from some of the stuff we talk about. And with that being said, Nirav, enjoy the next 2 weeks, and I will catch you on the next episode.
You got it. Thank you, everybody.